founder and executive director of Brian Research, a think tank working with animal charities and alternative protein companies to advance the protein transition through social science. He has his PhD in psychology, and Chris and his team work on a range of surveys, focus groups, expert interviews, and modeling projects to advance the protein transition. So, welcome, Chris. I'm excited to talk to you today. I've been in touch with you on LinkedIn for a while, so I'm glad this has all come around.
Thank you so much for having me on. I should be worried that you've been on my LinkedIn. That's the best and worst of me on there.
I love it. Well, where are you joining us from?
I'm in Bristol in the UK.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia area. So let us know if you're watching and where y'all are joining from. So, Chris, I like to start out just by hearing your vegan story. When did you become vegan?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Well, I first went vegan in Veganuary 2019, so about 7 years ago, and I'd been vegetarian for maybe 4 or so years before that, I would say. Yeah, so that's my backstory.
All right. And how did you find out about Veganuary?
Well, at the time, I think that was maybe one of the best Veganuary years from what I hear of other people who have done it. Certainly here in the UK, it's gone very international now, and they continue to enjoy growing numbers every year, which is very exciting. But yeah, I was aware of Veganuary. How did I find out about it? I'm not sure, to be honest, but I work in the space. I guess at that time I was still doing my PhD, so I hadn't quite finished up and started doing this kind of thing. But I had already worked at Viva, which is an animal charity based here in Bristol, and I was doing my PhD research on cultivated meat. So that was kind of my, I was already very much interested in meat reduction, and I was already vegetarian at the time, and so on. So, yeah, I think it was probably at that time in the UK, it was quite difficult to avoid, honestly.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So, when you went vegan, what did your friends and family think?
Well, I think I'd been sliding that way already, so probably a lot of people were not that surprised. I had been vegetarian for a number of years, as I said, but I think certainly the vegan brand was still shocking to some. So yeah, I mean, I'm a bit of a lad at heart. You don't really have that term so much in the US, but I'm like you might say like a frat bro in some senses.
Okay.
But yeah, we say lads here in the UK. So I'm a bit of a lad, a bit of a bloke. And so in some ways that's like a little bit incongruent with that, I suppose. But I knew a couple of the lads who I'm friends with were already vegetarian. I think only one at that point. But now, out of about a dozen or so guys who I'm friends with from school and had known for a long time, I'd say at this point half of them are at least vegetarian.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty good. Yeah, pretty woke crowd.
Yeah, that's very impressive. And I'm sure you know how to handle the where do you get your protein question from.
Yes, absolutely. Well, do you know what? I've just been to the gym before this, so I've got my protein shakes right here.
Good to hear. All right. So, all right. Well, let's talk about. I have some questions. Let me get my questions because this is very interesting. I really love talking with someone. So I'm more of an emotional brain. I have to bring in the logic. I have to be conscious about bringing in the logic. So when I feel like I'm talking to someone who's very logical here, and I love it. It's kind of challenging and scary. I'll be honest, because sometimes it's hard for me to keep up. But nevertheless, um, I'm excited to. I mean, the doing all the data and everything and Brian Research. I mean, how long has Brian Research been? How long has that been around?
Yeah, so I started Brian Research in 2020. Pretty much as soon as I finished my PhD, I graduated right when COVID was kicking off, and so it felt quite the normal path in many ways to carry on doing very much the kind of research that I've been doing during my PhD, and carry on working from home, as was like the only option at that time in many ways. So yeah, started in 2020, and then fast forward a couple of years, I had two people join as summer interns when I had had a couple of contracts. I couldn't work out how to pay myself. I had a limited company around. I couldn't work out how I was allowed to pay myself for some time. So it was just like accumulating money that I was getting from work and wasn't able to pay. But I had very low cost of living, right? Because it was COVID. I wasn't doing anything. Anyway, got to the point where I had a bit of money in the bank and was able to say, okay, I'll be able to afford to pay two people for 3 months of summer, and if that's all it ends up being, then so be it. But it was very much okay, I said to them at the time, if we keep getting work, you'll keep having work as well. And one of them is still working for me now, nearly 4 years later. Now there's a team of 5 of us. We hired a bunch more people in 2023. At our peak, we were 7, but most of them were part-time. And so now we're 5 of us, everyone full-time. And we do a bunch of different research projects relating to animal consumption and reduction thereof, alternative proteins, policy in that kind of area as well. We do all sorts of things relating to social science of the protein transition.
Yeah, in this research, what has one thing really stood out? I mean, something that you came to learn that was kind of shocking that you were,
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of things really. I think that one big thing that all vegetarians and vegans kind of have a sense of intuitively, if you are vegetarian or vegan for long enough and you have conversations about it where people are a bit defensive and kind of feel that they need to make justifications why they're eating meat and so on, we all become quite familiar with cognitive dissonance and with motivated reasoning, which is kind of closely connected concept. And so this is the phenomenon where there's uncomfortable feeling arising from the difference between one's reflective beliefs and one's actions, or the way that they tend to live their life. And when you notice this, you can experience cognitive dissonance. And so as a result of that, you'll feel that dissonance, and then you'll kind of do the motivated reasoning to try and align your beliefs with your actions. And so I feel like a lot of vegetarians and vegans are very intuitively familiar with that process. But one thing that I think is quite interesting is that for many people, even getting to the stage of cognitive dissonance is itself progress, because most people are in the stage before this, which we might call the pre-contemplation stage in the stages of change model, where they're not even experiencing cognitive dissonance, they're just not thinking about it at all, right? They don't have cognitive dissonance because it's just never crossed their mind that maybe they'll be the type of person to go vegetarian, or maybe they ought to go vegetarian or vegan. That dissonance for a lot of people can be progress just from pre-dissonance, pre-contemplation. So I think that's a nice thing for vegans to recognize, because it's very frustrating when you're interacting with somebody who's in the throes of cognitive dissonance, but that discomfort that they are sitting with, before you brought it to their attention, they didn't even have that. So that can be progress for a lot of people.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, because sometimes people feel like if someone was angry or just walked away, or you could see they were upset, that wasn't good enough. But that's the jarring you're talking about, the kind of the awakening that maybe they didn't know before.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's for a lot of people, that is what progress looks like. And sometimes we have the idea that you ought to not give people cognitive dissonance, if you can navigate it in a way that, it's like if you give people cognitive dissonance, then you've somehow lost or you've not done it properly. I think, like I said, that is progress, and that one way of resolving that dissonance is to change the behavior. Now, some people do the motivated reasoning thing, and they're going to make up their reasons for why they carry on eating meat, why factory farming is not a problem, and maybe animals don't feel things, and maybe plants do feel things actually, right, and all this kind of stuff. It's like no one would ever say that they think that outside of the context of a conversation about vegetarian or veganism. But yeah, it's many people who are vegan today can remember a time when they were in that stage of cognitive dissonance. And maybe for years even. I myself was probably about 2 years when I was thinking, I really should get around to going vegetarian. And all that can really accelerate that and push you towards it is instances where you're colliding with the reality of it in a way that's very difficult to avoid. And so I think animal activists, as much as people might think, they're annoying or whatever, protests and so on, like, they're shoving this in front of our faces and we don't want to see it. Of course you don't want to see it, because it's reminding you of your cognitive dissonance. It's reminding you of a behavior change that you really ought to make. So I think, just inviting people to collide with the reality of animal agriculture as graphically and as frequently as possible is the antidote there.
All right. Well, that's very, very, very interesting. I was going to actually ask you a question about that, and I wanted to thank Heinz57 bot. Heinz57 bot says they're listening, so keep listening. All right. So I was thinking about like a person who is very ethical, highly intelligent, and deeply moral, right? And someone who understands their responsibility to the world, right, and the actions. And if they went vegan and then or even vegetarian, and they find themselves turning their back on that commitment, what does that do to their internal psychology? I mean, do you think that person would feel a heightened sense of responsibility to return to integrity, or do you think that, or do you see them creating these logical, jumping through hoops logically to justify?
Yeah, I think one experience that people who stop being vegetarian or vegan seem to have is like a humiliating climb down from the high horse, basically. I spoke to this guy called Glenn Burrows, who's ex-vegetarian gone butcher. So that's quite the transition, right? To be precise, he founded a butchery company. He's not the butcher per se, but he founded this company called The Ethical Butcher, and he's trying to source all of the meat ethically and stuff like this. And he speaks about this experience of, you have to get come out as a meat eater to people in your life, and many of whom will have felt that you were judging them over the years, and now they get to say, haha, I told you so. Now, I think a lot of people don't necessarily feel that they've changed their beliefs or core principles in that situation. Again, this is like a form of this can be a form of psychological defense mechanism, right, where people will say, well, this is consistent with how I felt all along, and it was really about the way that the animals are treated, not the killing per se, or whatever it may be. So I think that seems to be a common thread, and it's interesting because most people are just ignorant or have just never thought about it, as I said. So for the ex-vegetarian or the ex-vegan, they don't really have that excuse. Like, they have thought about it, they have acted on it for a decent amount of time. But it's interesting because we do see this effect that the longer people stick with it, the less likely they are to give up. Most people, if they're going to give it up, it's like in the first month or the first 6 months. Whereas the longer you stick with it, you increase your conviction that you're doing the right thing, and you also increase your ability to navigate it. Basically, you learn all the tips about what you can and can't eat and so on. Like, I've been vegan for 7 years now, and it's trivially easy at this point. I don't have any temptations. I know how to read labels and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, in those first few months, I think is when it can be tricky for people. I like talking about a particular app, which is called Food Tea. It's the word food with the T on the end. You can search that in the App Store and on the Google Play Store. And what it is a game where different foods come up on the screen, and some in red circles, these are like foods that you're trying to avoid, and some in green circles, these are like foods that you're okay to eat, right? Healthy vegetables and stuff like that. And when you have this app, what you're doing is pressing on the screen when you see foods come up in green circles, and then not pressing when you see the foods coming up in red circles. And you can set meat to come up in the red circles, right? And it's training your brain to not respond to those particular foods. And I think in the studies they do this for like 2 weeks of people playing it once a day for like 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. And there's a significant reduction in cravings of the food coming up in red circles. They have versions of this where they do it with cigarettes and alcohol, like anything that you might be trying to give up. It's like training your brain to not respond to those cues of seeing the thing. So in those early stages where you're like, wow, I'm trying to give up meat here, but it's actually really challenging, that Food Tea app, and people can search for it, it's really something that I'd recommend for people who are trying to go vegetarian but struggling.
Well, that's amazing. Yes, because I mean, we're so programmed, right, for that reward center. And so then if you're seeing something different than the reward, it would make sense that you're paving those new pathways in your brain.
Yeah, they call it response inhibition training. It's literally just like inhibiting your automatic responses to go towards something, and it works with a bunch of different stimuli that you might be trying to give up, basically. So yeah, really good tool.
I'm going to check it out. Food Tea?
Food Tea, that's right. Yeah, I guess it's called the Food Trainer. But they just call it Food Tea. So that's what to search on the App Store, and it's like a green circle with the word Food Tea in it. You'll recognize it. Yeah.
All right, I'll check it out. And so, what does the average Joe think about the food system? Because in your research, what do you find?
Well, not a lot, basically. People are consistently wrong on things like the number of farmed animals on factory farms. People way underestimate that in general. If you ask them about the animals that they're eating, they underestimate even more, right? Of course, I'm eating the happy animals. It's everyone else who's eating the factory farmed animals, so people think. They just don't realize that, in developed countries, pretty much, if you're eating meat, the odds are it's come from a factory farm. I think it's something like 99% of farmed animals in the US, and over 90% of farmed animals in the world are on factory farms. So people way underestimate that. And these days as well, we're in the throes of meat industry propaganda about ultra-processed foods, which is a big hobby horse of mine. Like, that's probably a term that everyone's familiar with at this point, and it's really misleading because the idea is that if foods are processed, that they're bad, and if foods are natural, then they're healthy, right? Of course, if you think about it for more than like a minute, it's obvious that this is not the case. There's a bunch of health foods, right? Protein shakes, got my protein shake here. This is going to count as an ultra-processed food. It's one of the healthiest things that you can consume. So too, red meat on the other end of the spectrum. Hey, here's something natural, so it must be healthy. Nope, we know that gives you heart disease and bowel cancer, so stay away from that, right? So yeah, there's largely this is a tool made up to villainize plant-based meat alternatives. They're going to fall in the ultra-processed category, and so people assume that that's bad as a result. But there's a bunch of evidence at this stage, including randomized controlled trials and systematic reviews and meta-analyses, indicating that plant-based meats are healthier than meat. That's one of my favorite catchphrases to say. Plant-based meats are healthier than meat. And yeah, it's been really deliberately confused by this category called ultra-processed foods.
Right. So if you're watching, let us know that you're watching if you have any questions. So okay, let's just say I was saying no, that plant-based foods is not healthier than meat. What would you say to me? How would we defend that?
So there's a few things that you can talk about. One, so on the nutritional level, they're lower in saturated fat, lower in calorie density, and higher in fiber. So those are all things which are going to be associated with decreased risk of chronic disease. And that's kind of on the nutritional, like, mechanistic level that people generally understand more so. Like, oh, we know that saturated fat's bad, we know that fiber's good, we know you don't want to have too many calories, right? Most people are overweight or obese, and so, or you're meant to say living with overweight or obesity. That's the way to say it now. But that's most people in any case, and certainly in developed countries. And so, yeah, that's like an easy-ish way to explain it. Fiber, saturated fat, calorie density. Those are the three main things that we talk about on the nutritional level. And then if people... Now, I've come to understand recently that most people are not actually interested in hearing about the randomized controlled trials and the meta-analyses. But basically, if you do experiments where you assign half the people to eat red meat and half of the people to eat plant-based meat, the people who eat plant-based meat will have lower BMI, have lower blood cholesterol, have lower markers for chronic disease, basically at the end of like quite a short period. I think these studies are like 8 weeks, and it's already enough to detect significant reductions in cholesterol, reductions in BMI. I think there's some blood pressure ones as well. So yeah, both on the nutritional level, we understand the components of these different products that make them healthy or unhealthy, and on the experimental level, indeed, yes, we do see better health markers for people consuming plant-based products versus meat.
Interesting. And yeah, and then those are very good talking points. So thank you for sharing that. We have a comment here. New Pilgrim says that it overcame extreme bulimia with a ketogenic diet. Interesting conversation. Ketogenic. Now, is that only meat?
Not necessarily. So ketogenic, I believe that's like low carbs, right? That's what used to be called the Atkins diet. I think that was talking about the same thing. Often people doing keto are having a lot of meat and animal products if they're trying to cut out carbs, but not necessarily. There is vegan keto. I've definitely heard that as a term. So we'll allow that comment. We'll assume they're vegan. Yeah.
Y'all, let's give us some questions if you have any.
I will say this though, it is interesting how like various unusual eating patterns, let's say, do seem that like there's a certain type of person who will kind of go between different unusual ways of eating. So it's not uncommon that you see like people going from carnivore to vegan or vice versa, right? It's like they seem to be complete opposite things, but really it's just like, well, this person's very interested in just like different diets, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So, all right. Well, I want to have time to talk about a lot of things here, and I think, all right, I think so. New Program is saying that she is not vegan. I think she or he, maybe I can't see anyway, or they, 15 years and healthier than I've ever been in my life. Okay. Well, I mean, I was in a debate with a carnivore also, which was very interesting.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. He hadn't been the carnivore diet very long, only like 6 months, but I don't know. It was pretty shocking to hear what he was eating. But anyway, nevertheless, I did have my broccoli this morning and sweet potatoes and a lot of good things. My dog is vegan too. So actually, you might have heard him yell. He might yelp. So just if anybody's watching, he just got attacked by a big dog, but he's better.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Oh, he's better though. But
is that a picture of your dog I can see in the background there? You got a picture
actually,
on the wall.
That's another dog I had, Mick. But
my dog, bless.
I know, that's a cutie, Mickey. But yeah, so if you hear a yelp, it's just I guess he moves. I don't know. The dog bit him really badly, but he's doing so much better. So,
well, I'm glad to hear he's on the recovery. And well done you for debating carnivores. I actually debated a carnivore or animal-based diet, I would say, quite recently. And I did a lot of preparation for it on stream. We were just like doing research and say, what's the evidence for a carnivore diet, and there really isn't any. I have to tell you, there really isn't any. I mean, I totally went into it thinking okay, this seems to be a bit of a trend. Some people seem to say that there's that they get health benefits from this. Like there's people who debate on the carnivore side what actually is the evidence that they're citing. Where's the experimental evidence or the prospective cohort studies or like anything. But there really isn't anything. There really isn't anything. There is anecdotes and stories about evolution and ancestral diets. They like the phrase ancestral diets, right? This is very, very weak evidence. I started out in that debate by talking about the evidence hierarchy and saying, like, look, you have like nice stories about evolution down at the bottom of the evidence hierarchy, anecdotes and case studies, like the level above that, and then the strongest evidence. The strongest evidence they have is a cross-sectional survey of about 2,000 people, which are like recruited from online carnivore forums, and very much in the cult and motivated to report positive health outcomes, and that is where it stops. And then, of course, everything in the top part of the evidence hierarchy, when you look at case control studies or epidemiological studies. And all the carnivores hate epidemiology, but they don't seem to realize this is much higher up the evidence hierarchy than stories about evolution. And even like randomized control trials, like I mentioned, when people are eating plant-based meat instead of meat, all of the evidence at the top of the hierarchy is very much in favor of plant-based diets. But yeah, the carnivore crowd are not the brightest, so they don't necessarily appreciate that distinction, I've found.
Well, it's interesting when I took the Cornell, the now I can't think of it, the plant-based the classes there, nutrition studies. One of them was about research and really seeing where are these studies from, right? Just because they can be so manipulated and they can be such small studies and they can be funded by like the egg companies, and so yeah, so that's another thing to be very aware of. So
Well,
I don't,
I thought that I might encounter some of that, like some kind of like poorly conducted studies or like misrepresented studies or some sort of like poorly done evidence from a little bit higher up the evidence hierarchy that must be what they're citing when they're talking about carnivore diets and the benefits of animal products. But as far as I can tell, there's not even that. There isn't even like, you know what I mean? I found a couple of studies which seem to be undertaken with the motivation of finding some positive effects of animal products, and some of them even like funded by National Cattlemen's Association and stuff like this. And invariably they fail to find it. And there's a couple of them which still get published anyway, where I think there was one where they're looking at muscle synthesis from beef versus soy protein or something like that. I'm getting the details wrong, but it's something like that. And it's funded by some beef lobby, and evidently they're hoping to find and report, hey, look at this, beef's better for muscle growth. And they didn't find any difference, and the authors still published it. So yeah, even the industry funded stuff, as far as I can tell, is not supportive of animal products being healthy.
Very interesting. Yes, and then new programmer saying vegetarian in the 20s did it right, got very ill. We're not all the same. Thanks for your willingness to acknowledge it. And then you're ignoring legitimate studies, which I would like to know what those are. So let us know what the legitimate studies are.
Yeah, do let us know, Pilgrim. And that's interesting. Bulimic to vegetarian to keto. Maybe an interesting diet person. Not to. I don't want to say too much about that. I don't want to say too much about that, as you were.
Yes. Well, diet is very complicated. That's for sure. So, so much emotional ties to food. So I'm going to check out that food tea. So I want to talk about, wait a minute. Let me see. I think I did have one more question I was going to ask you. Oh yeah. Okay. So how do we ensure that solving the protein problem with technology, that we don't lose the moral awakening that veganism is supposed to bring to the human heart?
I'm so sorry. Ask me that. I'm so sorry. I was distracted by something on my end. Please ask.
Okay, that's okay. Let me try to get back to it. Okay. So hold on. How do we ensure that by solving the protein problem with technology, that we don't lose the moral awakening that veganism, is trying to bring to the human heart?
That's a really interesting question. Yeah, some people have expressed this concern, like, oh, if you can just have cultivated meat and perfectly replicate meat without having to kill any animals, then maybe you lose something in terms of having people come to the moral awakening or kind of like change their thinking about these things. I mean, for me, it's nice if people have the moral awakening, but it's if we can stop the mass slaughter without having to rely on that, then I'm up for that as well. Like, the moral awakening is really just a means to an end. I don't care in many ways I don't care about the moral awakening for the individual's own sake. Like, it's not important to me that carnivores have a transformative moment where they see the light or whatever, only to the extent that they are going to stop slaughtering animals as a result of that. But if we can just skip to the stop slaughtering animals, then yeah, I'm up for that. I think that, so I totally get the view that there's something. It feels like cheating, right? It feels like cheating if you can just say, well, hey, look, we can carry on eating meat now. We don't have to go through the cognitive dissonance and everything else. But I always just think, like, I don't know, I'm very outcomes driven and trying to think about what is going to have fewer knives in throats, and if we can do that without having to persuade the wacky carnivores, then let's do that.
Right. Well, no, I mean, I think that goes back to the point of like people getting mad at, let's say somebody says, well, I'm not a vegan, but I eat, plants. I only eat plants, right? And then I don't care. I don't care as long as as long as you're eating the plants, that's fine. You don't have to call yourself a vegan. Just, because you're doing, you have the behavior of what will help the animals. So
100%. Yeah. And that's an interesting thing. People, definitely in the early stages of having changed, people do this thing where they're a bit hesitant to call themselves vegetarian or a vegan, and they feel like it's they feel like they're faking it in some sense. They feel like, well, that's not really who I am. It takes a little while for that identity to solidify, you might say. But yeah, no, I agree with you. The important thing is that they're not killing the animals anymore. So call yourself whatever you want, mate.
very, very true. Oh my gosh, yes. And a lot of times the word vegan is so scary because people think I can never live up to that, I mean, and yeah, just you don't have to call yourself that. Just do the best you can. My gosh, right? Don't discount. I mean, every little bit, every time you don't eat an animal meal, then that's making a difference.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm very supportive of people who are making positive changes in that direction. And yeah, I often say all we have is incrementalism, right? We don't actually have the big green vegan world now button. So in lieu of that, I think we have to, accept that for some people it will be an incremental process. I actually saw some survey results asking a lot of vegans, I think about 12,000 vegans, how they went vegan. And in that particular survey, 50% said that they'd gone vegan overnight, as they say, like just went vegan instantly as soon as they thought about it, but as soon as they tried to do it, I guess. Which, to me, that was shockingly high. I would have thought that many more people, I guess I'm just projecting my own experience to a large extent, but I would have thought many people spend 2 years thinking I ought to be a vegetarian and then another 4 years before going vegan. But yeah, it seems intuitive to me that there is like steps in that direction. But yeah, apparently 50% of current vegans said that they did it instantly. So fair play to them, I guess. They're made of sterner stuff than I am.
Well, some people say that really wasn't that way. I mean, they might have seen it that way, but then they had all those steps, I mean, like the connections with animals throughout their whole life. And then they just had that one boom, and that's what pushed them. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. We're not necessarily the best judges of our own arc in many ways, I guess.
Yeah, very true. So I really like it when I'm talking to someone who is very self-aware and enlightened. That's always a blessing because a lot of us are walking. I mean, in the food world, I mean, speaking about food, many of us, I mean, most of us are walking around like zombies. No connection, no idea about the food and the connection to animals. I mean, it's and walking through the grocery store and see all the packaged animals, and people don't think that those packages containing animals.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the way that we are so manipulated.
yeah, 100%. I've been sharing some stuff this week on LinkedIn about vegetarians consistent or meat avoiders, let's say, including vegans, consistently have higher IQ scores than meat eaters. And like a lot of people are mad about that, right? It's not very polite to point out, basically. But I was thoroughly unsurprised by that finding. There's like a few different studies; they're all pretty consistent on this idea that meat avoiders have higher cognitive function, as some of them put it, than the meat eaters. Which, of course, meat eaters are the majority of the population, right? They're kind of well, they're of average intelligence on average, right? But on average, vegetarians and vegans tend to be more intelligent, and I was thoroughly unsurprised by that. And then when I was thinking about it afterwards, like the people that I know who are vegetarian or vegan, there's a bit of a selection effect because I work in that field, so a lot of the vegetarians and vegans I know are professionals, I suppose. But I don't really know any like stupid people. I don't really know any stupid people who don't eat meat, frankly. Everyone that I can think of in my own life who's vegetarian or vegan, I think, yeah, they're a pretty smart person. So maybe there's some degree of bias in my just liking them for that, I suppose. But yeah, it's unsurprising that people who have chosen to depart from the default of eating meat tend to be reflective people, tend to understand, be high in empathy, and have a lot of features which are going to correlate with higher intelligence. So yeah, that's a controversial one for your audience.
That's funny, but it makes sense, right? Yeah, and you just listed the thing, what I was going to ask you next. So yeah, higher empathy and yeah, I mean, there would have to be a higher openness to change, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
not
that's a big part as well.
rigid, a more openness to growing. And so, yeah, because some people just don't want to even talk about anything. They just like,
Yeah,
I'll suggest a conversation and they'll just completely ignore me. I mean, I'm not talking about veganism, but in other areas of, of self exploration. Nope, just like crickets. So,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I've definitely met people like that as well.
so I want to talk about the advocacy concept of vegan 2.0, and I watched your video on YouTube. So that's it's on your channel. So tell us about vegan 2.0.
Yes, absolutely. So Vegan 2.0 is my proposed upgrade to veganism. Essentially, in veganism, we talk about avoiding animal exploitation as far as practical and possible. And in Vegan 2.0, we talk about preventing animal exploitation as efficiently and effectively as possible. So it's the key thing is moving from a focus on avoiding or excluding, I think is the word that they have in the definition. Moving from a focus on avoiding or excluding animal exploitation to actually preventing animal exploitation. And so, you might hear that and go, okay, you've invented animal advocacy, right? Okay, good for you. There's another component of it, which is the efficiently and effectively. So it's really trying to find the things which are going to be the best bang for your buck or the best return on your time investment, which are going to efficiently move that needle and prevent animal exploitation. And one way of thinking about it is in what I now call Vegan 1.0, aka veganism. Really, if you're the perfect vegan and you manage to exclude or avoid all of the animal exploitation, you get to zero. Right, you're just about getting to the stage where you're not responsible for any animal exploitation now, and in practice, that's very, very difficult to do because, of course, there's things like there's milk powder in medicine. There's like a lot of taxis that you might want to get in. They kind of have leather seats, and so you refuse a ride in that taxi, right? Like it's very difficult, and that's why they have this clause in the veganism definition about as far as practicable and possible, right? It's like it recognizes that it's essentially impossible to avoid all animal products in living in a developed country and just like living in normal society, right? So if you do it perfectly, if you're the perfect vegan 1.0, you get to zero. And then that's it. You've opted out of, you're not causing any animal suffering, and that's it. But you are also not preventing any animal suffering. And if you try to do that effectively and efficiently, you can help way more animals than you would ever avoid exploiting by being the perfect vegan 1.0. So to give some examples, giving to effective animal charities, there's a few different estimates of like animals saved per dollar out there, and I've taken a bunch of them and averaged them together, and it comes out at about 4 animals to the dollar, which is crazy if you think about it. Like, you're going to save 4 animals' lives for $1, 25 cents. Like, you can't get anything for 25 cents now, right? But you can save a life, right? Which is wild if you think about it. So effective animal charities, and I would recommend Animal Charity Evaluators as an organization that does what it says on the tin, evaluates animal charities and identifies those with very promising theories of change and very efficient running, basically, and good track record and stuff like this. So that's giving. There's also sharing and doing. These are the 3 components of Vegan 2.0 that I talk about. Give more, share more, do more. So that's give more to effective animal charities, and it really matters that they're effective, because that's not a given in charities. Your operations are completely detached from your funding source. So you can keep on going and spinning your wheels and achieving really nothing for years, as long as you have a compelling marketing department and are able to keep the donations flowing. So that's why the effective part is important there. And Animal Charity Evaluators is the name of the organization that does that. So that's the giving more. Then the sharing more, I think it's really important for us all to speak up and speak about the reasons why you ought to be vegan and share things on social media. It's so easy now. People used to fight for control of the printing presses and like who's going to own the media. And now we all kind of do, right? Like, it's social media. You can post whatever you want. You can be, reaching the people in your life and beyond through just the device in your pocket. So there's really no excuse to not be broadcasting the reasons why people ought to be vegan as much as your followers can tolerate, right? In particular, sharing the things which we know are hard to look at, like the factory farming and the slaughterhouse footage. That is the stuff that will get people to take seriously the need to change. And also like disgust-based stuff. Like there's one study where they took a bunch of ground beef samples and tested them for fecal contamination, aka poop, and found fecal contamination in 100% of the samples tested. So if you're eating ground beef, you are eating poo. So that's maybe going to be something that gets people to think twice. So sharing things on social media, really, really important. And don't underestimate.
Where's that poop coming from? I know where it's coming from, but what would you tell us?
Yes. Well, yeah, the common foodborne diseases that you can get from eating poorly prepared meat products, salmonella and E. coli and listeria and things like this, these are intestinal diseases. So this is from the poop tracks of the animals that get ground up into ground beef. In many ways, it should be quite unsurprising that that's in there. Like, they're chucking cows into a grinder. And so, yeah, you're getting more than you bargained for in that sense.
Oh my gosh, yeah, because like, especially when animals are under, just shock, they release everything.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Oh, and same with humans. When you die, you shit yourself, apparently. This is what they tell me.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, same for animals as well. So that's the sharing more, and then the final part is the doing more. And I think this is where there's like really good return on effort as well, and why I think Vegan 2.0 is a good brand and like a little bit different from animal activism as people normally conceive of it. Because when you think about animal activism, if you sort of close your eyes and think about the image that brings up, it's probably like the street activists, like arguing with people on the street, or going to the march, or going to the vigils and stuff like this. Like, it's all pretty high effort stuff, frankly, and I can't be bothered doing that. I can't be bothered doing that, frankly. I don't get me wrong. I have a lot of respect for the people who do that stuff, but it's all very high effort. And if you say to people you should do activism, like that's what people think of, the very high effort, high social confrontation kind of stuff. There's way easier stuff that you can do that arguably helps. Well, I won't say helps animals more because I'm getting the activists mad at me, but that helps a lot of animals just from your computer. So something that we always do on the stream is the Fast Action Network. If you go to action.thehumaneleague.org, they have a really nice feed. It looks like a social media feed, and it just has actions that you can do, and it's just emailing people and posting things on social media, basically. But they're targeted at particular companies who have like broken their pledges on sourcing cage-free eggs, typically. And the idea is, of course, like if you get enough people doing this, you're flooding the likes of Unilever, that's a big target at the moment, with negative comments on all their social media platforms, with emails to the high-up decision makers. They make these bespoke websites that are like calling out the executives, which that'd be really hard hitting if that happened to you. It's like, that'd get your attention. So if you get enough people doing that in a coordinated way, focused on a handful of companies that have broken these pledges, they can really move the needle. And actually, just yesterday, there was an announcement that Ahold Delhaize, which is one of these companies that people might not have heard of, but they own a bunch of brands, and they have now, under pressure from activists on action.thehumaneleague.org and other similar platforms, caved and committed to sourcing 100% of their eggs from cage-free sources. So that's the doing more. You've got the give more on animal charity evaluators, sharing more upsetting or disgusting stuff on your social media, as unpopular as that might seem to be, and doing more in a coordinated way that can be quite low effort and just done from your computer or your phone through platforms like action.thehumaneleague.org. So yeah, there's really a lot of stuff that people can do to help a ton of animals that is going to be way more animals than you can help by being the perfect vegan 1.0.
Yeah, and I liked what you said about if you do have a mixed group on your social media, you don't want to just only have all vegan stuff. And that's what I do. I mean, I use my dog a lot because I throw in a lot of dog, which gets all sorts of, billion likes, and then I'll throw in something, something else, but I try to, and of course I love my dog, but in nature and stuff. So yeah, I try to balance it out, because if I do too much of something, then I'm going to lose my audience completely.
100%. Yeah, and that is actually advice that I need to take more. I give that advice, but I don't really take it. You're absolutely right. You want to diversify things and keep doing things. Dog pictures are a great idea. I got a ton of dog pictures on my phone. I should post them from time to time. Of things that are going to get people to like your posts and therefore keep your posts coming up in their algorithm, and then boom, you hit them with the disgusting and upsetting stuff.
Well, you've given me a lot of ideas on that. I mean, I wouldn't even have to necessarily post a picture. I could just post about the E. coli in the burger, right? I mean, just one big, sentence or something like that. So yeah, but all right. And y'all, if you're watching, please go to www.all-creatures.org to make a one-time or recurring donation to fund programs like these. So what else? Tell us about then, I mean, what is would you say would be the biggest shift from vegan 1.0 to vegan 2.0 that we can take today?
So a really, really easy thing that you can do is setting up recurring donations. And I recommend that people give directly to animal charity evaluators, and then they distribute to their recommended charities. The reason I recommend that is because they update their recommendations, I think, every 2 years. And so if you start giving to one of the recommended charities today, they may not be a recommended charity in 2 years' time, and then you may forget or just think you can't find it in your heart to cancel that donation and start a new donation. So if you give to these meta funds like animal charity evaluators, you kind of are assured that there's, you're up to date basically on what the effective charities are. So that's a really nice and easy thing that people can do. And I love the recurring donations because it's the only one that you can kind of set up and then never think about it again. If you are like the sharing more and the doing more, you have to kind of remember to do it basically, and you have to stay motivated, and you probably have periods where you just are not posting on social media that much about anything, or like you couldn't be bothered doing Fast Action Network for a little while or something like that. But with the recurring donations, it's like you can be, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to constantly discover your enthusiasm for doing this stuff. So setting up recurring donations to animal charity evaluators. And also, I mean, the sharing and the doing is also important, but as far as I can tell, based on the numbers, if you're giving a decent amount in a monthly donation, that's probably where the majority of your animals saved are going to come from the recurring donations. So doing that is, I would say, the most important thing that you can. And you're getting to a stage where you're helping more animals than you're helping by being vegan, with like very modest monthly donations, really. So you can double or triple or quadruple or 10x your impact. It's trivial to do so with recurring with recurring donations to effective animal charities.
Right, good to know. And where will Bryant Research be in the next 10 years? What are you looking at for the future?
Good question. Yeah, well, honestly, we've always just kind of been like having no further than like 1 or 2 months foresight, frankly. So yeah, pretty much since I started it, we've never been more than 6 months away from running out of money. And that sounds scarier than it is, because 6 months is a long time to find new projects to work on and get paid for. So I think we will, God willing, we'll still be trucking in 10 years' time. And well, in one sense, I hope that we're not needed for very much longer, or certainly for the rest of my life. I think that it would be nice if we see the end of factory farming before then. I think it's doable. But at the moment, we're very much leaning into AI stuff. We're doing a lot of AI solutions, coming up with ways to make the animal movement more efficient using all the new AI tools that didn't exist a year or even 6 months ago. And that can really multiply the impact of some of these already effective organizations. So we're trying to make that catch on in the movement. We had a recent thing happen quite recently where we've written a proposal to do a research project that somebody inquired with us about, a would-be client. And the guy who's the big AI expert on my team made an AI-generated report, and it wasn't just like a deep research report, but there's a few iterations and having different AI models talk to each other and stuff like this. And that took him about a day or 2 days, made the whole report that they wanted to commission. And it took about the same time as it took me to write the proposal, saying, we'll take 3 months and charge you thousands of pounds to do this. And he said, well, I've made the report already, so you can send this. So in the end, I sent them both. I sent the proposal, because, a lot of organizations is like very wary of AI stuff or don't want to go there. So in the end, I sent them both. I sent them like our, all too human proposal, and the finished AI report, and said if you are not opposed to it, you can just use this, and I guess we'll lose. I guess we'll lose the business, but that is where we want to be, because like we're not profit maximizing. We don't exist to make as much money as possible. We exist to help as many animals as possible, and if that means that we can have our clients use AI solutions to get where they need to go a lot more quickly and cheaply, then we'll happily put ourselves out of a job, I suppose.
Yes, yeah, that would be wonderful. I'd like to be out of these jobs too. Like, just talking about the past, in the past, right? Yeah. Anyway, well, Chris, give us your final last words, and tell us where people can check out, where they can hook up with you. Not hook up, but link up,
buy
whatever
me a
you want
drink
to say.
first. Yes, you can find me on YouTube. It's Chris Bryant PhD on YouTube, or search for Vegan 2.0 and you'll find me. Also on LinkedIn, I'm a big LinkedIn enjoyer, so probably a little bit harder to find there. My name's Chris Bryant with a little orange diamond afterwards. The orange diamond means that you give at least 10% of your income to effective charities. So that's what that is. And also at bryantresearch.co.uk, if you are working in an animal organisation or wanting to commission some sort of research to help your organisation meet its goals with respect to meat reduction, reducing animal suffering, we're here to help you and would love to talk.
Great. Yeah. And make sure you all go and watch that Vegan 2.0 video. And Ellen, I was wondering if you were watching. Thanks for watching. She's always a good supporter, and she's doing her best educating kids about animals and compassion. So
fantastic. That's so important.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yes. Well, thanks so much, Chris. This has been very informative, and I'm going to I don't know, there's a lot to process. So thank you. I'm going to go check out that food tea and then
That's the one.
Also these other things. All right. Well, thanks so much. You'll have to come back on again. Thanks everybody
Absolutely.
for watching.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thanks, New Pilgrim and Ellen. And all right. Bye, y'all.
All right. Just for my stream, I'm going to mute this up so that Marquita and I talk briefly backstage, but I'll put on yeah. Well, I guess she hung up on me. That was that then. All right, let me get my camera up here. Okay. We'd agreed beforehand that we'd do a debrief afterwards, so I was just going to mute stream so we could do that, but I guess we're not doing that. That's all right. Right, let me see if I can get my camera back here, and we've got all sorts of news and other bits that we can chat about. What's up, everyone? Nice to see you. Thank you for joining, everyone. Thank you. Let me get this cropped up nicely. about right. Good stuff. How we doing, chat? Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Hey, Tristan. Good to see you. Hey, Miss Teaspoon. Hey, Vegan Stem. How's it going? Oh, yeah. Let me get rid of that echo. There we are. Hey, Bretto. Good to see you. Hey, Vegan Anthem. Hey, Kerry. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for joining. What do we think of that, guys? This is the first time I've looked at chat now. Hey, Master Roach. Nice to see you. Thanks, Teaspoon. I appreciate it. Yes, true, Tristan. That is a little bit concerning, really. Do you know, it's not as bad as it could have been, but it's still pretty bad, I think. Let's see if we can't find any coverage about that, actually. That's very much the new news. Green Queen's on the case. Yes, Bretter, I do. Let me get them off my LinkedIn. They've been popping off, these posts. LinkedIn algo rewards you for comments. So if people comment on your stuff, it's that's what gets you more views. So a lot of people had comments on these. A lot of people had things to comment on these. So there's a few of them. There's 3 different studies that I found with this association. I guess I didn't actually link to this one. Here it is. I'll put it in chat. So there's one. Consumption of red meat is negatively associated with cognitive function. Then we've got analytic cognitive style is inversely related to meat consumption. Which is this one. And then I think that's the only one I linked was the vegetarian kids. Oh yeah, IQ in childhood is positively related to vegetarianism in adulthood. That's giving me the crappy LinkedIn link. Let's click through. Oh, here we go. There's that. There's that one. So these have been rattling cages as per usual. I can see that Marquita's messaged me on LinkedIn. Let me just read that real quick. Oh, she sent me voice notes. All right, let me mute clip to listen to this. Oh, that's very sweet. She sent me a nice message. She goes, "Darn it, I hit the wrong button and closed the whole thing down." Well, that was nice. That was nice. There you go. So there's the IQ posting. for the high IQ vegetarians versus the low IQ meatheads. Let's have a look at the news on the greatly awaited EU vote on the so-called veggie burger ban. Looks like they actually did not, in the end, ban veggie burgers. They have banned a bunch of terminology for plant-based products, which sucks. They have not gone as far as they could have done. They have not banned burgers, sausages, nuggets, ham, and a few other terms that we'll look at here. So, bit of a mixed bag on this news, I would say. Yeah, I agree, Tristan. The meat name bans will only slightly slow the inevitable rise of alt meats. True. And based. Oh, thanks, Miss Teaspoon. Yeah, I won't dox you, I guess, by opening on stream, but yeah, I'll accept that now. I appreciate that. I'm a great LinkedIn connection. I'll keep you entertained, I guarantee it. Most of LinkedIn's pretty boring, so it's not that difficult to be one of the fun ones. Yeah, thank you. That's my LinkedIn if people want to add me on there. We have a hoot. We have a blast on LinkedIn. Well, let's see. Green Queen has the scoop. This is hot off the press, guys. This is like 2 hours old news. So, you know, you might be hearing it here for the first time. EU bans 31 meat names on plant-based and cultivated products, but veggie burger saved. So this is dumb. This is remarkably dumb. They've banned the names for cultivated meat as well. In the case of plant-based, you can make a case that plant-based chicken is not in fact chicken, but cultivated chicken just is chicken. So I don't know what they're playing out with this, but let's get into it. Let's see what they're up to. The European Union has agreed to ban 31 meat-like names from being used on plant-based product labels, but common terms like veggie burger have been exempted. After months of back and forth, the EU has dealt an enormous blow to the plant-based industry. In today's trilogue negotiations between the European Parliament, Council and Commission, lawmakers agreed to ban vegan products from using 31 names on their packaging labels and marketing, including chicken, beef, steak and bacon. The EU's effort does spare some common terms like burgers, sausage, nuggets, ham and seafood alternatives, so products like the Beyond Burger, Juarez Nuggets and Delhaize Jambon can keep using their current names. That said, policymakers have decided to extend the ban to cultivated meat, a product that still isn't available anywhere in the region. And it's unclear how this will impact blended meat, a burgeoning category that combines animal proteins with plant-based ingredients and has gained rapid popularity in Europe's retail and food service markets. The cultivated meat inclusion in this is just mental. Like that, if it wasn't obvious already that this is being puppeteered by meat industry lobbyists, now it is. Like, who is that helping? What are they even going to call, like, cultivated chicken if it can't be called chicken? That's just mental. This is real overreach from the EU. And just extremely obvious that this is being puppeteered by the meat industry interests there. There's European Livestock Voice is one of them. Copa Cogeca is the main sort of meat industry lobbying org. There's the Italian one as well, which the name is slipped my mind right now, but there are specific organizations that have lobbied for this and are known to be influential in European Parliament, and they've been lobbying for this for years. And it's mental that this has been extended to cultivated meat. As far as I've known, that was not even on the cards. So I don't know how this is suddenly... Now this is the thing. You can't have cultivated meat. Like, what is it then? I think it's just ridiculous. Brexit not looking like such a bad idea now, I can say that. This is in the EU, so doesn't yet apply in the UK, but we're looking at doing realignment there, so probably this is also going to affect the UK as well. Like, this is not good news. We've got some hopium coming up. We do have some hopium. But yeah, this ain't it. This is not it. The EU has given companies 3 years to exhaust stock and align with the new regulations. Well, that's something. The technical details of the text will be finalised on Friday, March 13th, after which the file will move to a vote in the Agriculture and Fisheries Council with ministers from all 27 member states and one final vote in the Parliament plenary. Okay. Well, this paragraph's a little bit of hopium. First of all, there's 3 years to comply with the new regulations, so it's not going to be a ridiculous situation where companies are having to take products off shelves because they're not compliant with the new regulations. That has happened in this kind of thing, by the way. South Africa, when they passed this, they were like, it's banned starting now, and if you have any of these products with these names, they can't be sold anymore. You have to remove them from supermarkets. So that has happened before, but not in this case, so that's something. And also, good old EU with its endless bureaucracy and councils and parliaments and different votes that need to take place. So it looks like there's one more vote in the Agriculture and Fisheries Council, which they are much like the Department of Agriculture and a lot of national governments basically see themselves as representing the meat sector. So I don't doubt that they are going to be in favour. But then there needs to also be a final vote in the Parliament plenary. There are, of course, EU member states who oppose this. In particular, the Netherlands and Germany are very much in opposition to this proposed ban. Also, 3 years is a long time in politics. I don't want to say it's not over, but is it really over? Following this, plant-based and cultivated meat products will officially be banned from using meat-like terms, despite continuous opposition from consumers, businesses, and many policymakers. Yeah, this is really not going to be something that endears the EU to the UK, who's tentatively looking at not rejoining, but realigning. Like, this now means that a lot of UK companies are going to be affected by rules which we didn't vote on or have a say in. So that seems cooked. This is not going to be something that is endearing to British businesses and voters. Fortunately, the Conservative word police have failed to ban the veggie burger. Unfortunately, a number of others still end up on the blacklist. A number of other words still end up on the blacklist. That's a shame, Dutch MEP Anna Strollenberg, a staunch opponent of the measure, said after the negotiations, which ran overtime. Europe should be backing innovative entrepreneurs, not putting new obstacles in their way. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. What a crap place to do business. You just have this monstrous bureaucracy which is going to come out with these stupid rules solving problems that don't exist because they're being puppeted by the meat industry. One embarrassing day for the EU. Shame on the MEPs who voted for this. Siska Potti, Secretary-General of the European Alliance for Plant-Based Foods, added, this trilogue agreement sends a worrying signal for Europe's food sector. While we welcome that commonly used terms remain allowed, banning a wide range of animal-related names and cut descriptions for plant-based alternatives creates unnecessary red tape and market barriers while helping neither farmers nor consumers. Which names has the EU banned? Man, this sucks. The EU has outlawed the use of 31 names on plant-based and cultivated meat labels. Here's the full list. Like, this is so cooked that they're doing this for cultivated meat as well. This is so dumb. A lot of these are just going to be accurate descriptions of cultivated meat products. What? Beef, veal, pork, poultry, chicken, turkey, duck, goose, lamb, mutton, ovine, which one that is, goat, drumstick, tenderloin, sirloin, flank, loin, ribs, shoulder, shank, chop, wing, breast, thigh, brisket, ribeye, T-bone, rump, bacon, steak, liver. Yeah, I mean, I think most of these, as far as I can tell, are not terms that I've actually seen used on plant-based products at all. But things like plant-based chicken, I think pork and beef, they're more often referred to by some sort of format names like burger or sausage or mince or ham. So I dare say that we could live without that. I've never seen plant-based veal. Imagine. But chicken, that sucks. Like, how are you meant to talk about plant-based chicken? I don't know. I don't even know what other word to say. We have loads of plant-based chicken. We have the Richmond plant-based chicken. It's going to be like the oat milk thing, right? Where you're meant to say oat drink. Like, of course, no one does. But I don't know how they're going to describe their products on the packaging. And extending this to cultivated meat as well is so dumb. That is so dumb. People, if somebody's allergic to beef, for example, right, they have alpha-gal syndrome from the tick bite, and they're allergic to beef, and they're now going to be able to buy cultivated beef, which will give them an allergic reaction, but it's not going to be able to be labelled as beef. How's that going to work? It's going to be precious little comfort that some bureaucrat in Brussels, to borrow a term from Nigel Farage, is going to have assured you, well, this isn't actually beef, when you're literally dying of alpha-gal syndrome. How is that helpful? Other ones in here. I mean, look, most of these are talking about specific cuts. I really haven't seen most of these used on plant-based products. Chop. I mean, that seems like it's falling in the format category. We do have plant-based breasts and thighs from this in the UK, which are really good products, by the way. I was eating those yesterday, the plant-based thighs that they do. I guess they're going to call them something else, but, like, seriously, who's this helping? Other common terms that won't be banned under the new regulations include burger, mince, sausage, nuggets, ham, schnitzel, chorizo, pastrami. Well, there's something. I dare say that these are really the more common terms that you do see on plant-based products. Burgers, mince, sausage, nuggets, ham. I guess these are more common on the continent. There's a nod. There's a nod to the German opposition to this measure. But seriously, what a waste of everyone's time. This is solving a problem that does not exist. There's no evidence that consumers are confused by the current labelling. Efforts to ban vegan products from using bacon and the like on their packaging aren't new. It's a conversation that's been bubbling for a decade. In 2020, the EU Parliament voted against a similar proposal, but today's agreement undoes that decision. Oh, well, there you go. Maybe another 5 years' time, and they're going to be going back to sanity. Who knows? That's still not good, though, from a business perspective. Like, you don't want regulators to be overreaching like this and, like, just able to mess with your business, and now you have to change all your branding and everything else. Even if it changes back, like, the damage is done, the costs incurred already. Comes after months of negotiations in the bloc, sparked by a review of the Common Market Organisation regulation in July. The proposal was floated by French lawmaker Céline Imart, so is the French, a parliamentary rapporteur and member of the centre-right EPP party. She sought to prohibit plant-based food producers from using 29 words across the EU and a knock-on effect in the UK. Yeah. Thanks to a recently signed trade agreement. Oh, this is already happening, is it? This sucks. We're now just... we're not in the EU anymore, but we're still just taking the EU rules. Oh, that's good, isn't it? In September, the EU Parliament 49-member Agriculture Committee voted to move ahead with the ban, a decision replicated by MEPs in a plenary session with a 355 to 247 vote a month later. That's not close, but that is closer than it might have been. This is so dumb. That moved the proposal forward to be discussed in institutional negotiations under Denmark's presidency of the EU Council in December. Policymakers failed to reach an agreement on the ban then, instead pushing the decision to 2026 when Cyprus assumed the presidency. Yeah, a lot hinge. This is the EU's so fucking cooked, honestly. A lot hinges on who happens to have the presidency at that time, which just rotates between the different member states. So if something is not agreed, you can just wait for a more favourable presidency and bring it back again. So dumb. In an interview with Green Queen at the time, Strollenberg explained why the EU failed to reach an agreement. Since the meat denominations were an out-of-scope amendment, which is not taken up in the initial proposal for the Commission, the Council didn't have a position on it. They had to develop a position while the trilateral negotiations were already going on. Since it's such a politically difficult topic, it didn't leave enough time for the Council. Strollenberg had bemoaned the support for the proposal from the centre-left Socialist and Democrats Party, whose opposition could have changed the dynamic, while highlighting the very close contact between the rapporteur and pressure groups coming out for the livestock industry. Yeah, what a surprise. Literally, livestock lobbyists made this happen. Consumers are not confused, spearheading opposition to veggie burger ban. One of the chief factors cited by supporters of the ban is that labelling meat-free products the same way as meat would confuse EU citizens. However, study after study has debunked that theory. Yeah, true. In a large poll by the European Consumer Organisation in 2020, 80% of people said plant-based meat should be allowed to use such terms. in the 2023 Smart Protein Survey, only 9% of citizens from 9 member states said they didn't recognize plant-based meat alternatives. More recently, in a 20,000-person poll, 96% of Dutch consumers said a veggie sausage is, well, a veggie sausage. Nearly 70% opposed a labelling ban, and 63% said it was important to create... didn't think it was important to create regulations on this matter. Yeah. In a YouGov survey in late 2025, 92% of Brits said that they've never bought or cannot recall buying a plant-based sausage or burger thinking it contained meat. And this year, a poll in Italy revealed that 90% of consumers who buy vegan products know what they're putting on the plate. Yeah, the argument that consumers are confused by this kind of labelling is just completely bollocks. It's not just consumers, many lawmakers have criticised the ban too. Manfred Weber, head of the EPP, which IMART belongs to, called the ban unnecessary, telling reporters people are not stupid. Consumers are not stupid when they go to the supermarket and buy their products. Well, the meat lobbyists seem to think that they are. You know what, actually, they don't even think that. They're just being disingenuous. They know that nobody is confused by this. They're just looking to inflict damage on their competition. That is all it is. It's pathetic. This is why, by the way, the American states have constantly overturned these bans, right? We're reading about, like, half a dozen of the most right-wing states had brought in these bans on the grounds that it was confusing to consumers, and their courts had consistently found in every single case, no, this is not confusing to consumers, obviously, don't be stupid, and thrown the bans out. But I guess we're more cooked in Europe than you guys are in the States. Strollenberg has been outspoken in her opposition. Such types of useless ideological policies are exactly what give a bad name to the EU. True. In times of war, climate crisis, and democratic breakdown, where strong policies are lacking, we're discussing burgers and sausages. That's not what people are waiting for, she told the Green Queen in December. A day before the previous trilogue, she delivered a symbolic petition to the Commission, highlighting A day before the previous trilogue, she delivered a symbolic petition to the Commission, highlighting petitions with nearly 340,000 signatures from EU citizens, as well as an open letter signed by over 600 companies and organisations, both speaking out against the proposal. In the UK, a group of 8 MPs published an open letter urging the EU to reject the proposal, which would affect the British market thanks to a recently signed trade agreement. Celebrities like Sir Paul McCartney and his daughters Mary and Stella joined this call. Plant-based meat labelling ban will hurt farmers, businesses and consumers. It's incomprehensible that our policymakers are focusing on made-up issues when the world is at crisis, said Rafael Pinto, Senior Policy Manager of the European Vegetarian Union. We're happy that some common sense prevailed in the most frequently used words, but banning 31 words is not a censorship that makes Europeans proud. This decision goes against several EU priorities, such as increased competitiveness, innovation, food security, affordability, simplification, and higher income for farmers producing the products, he added. This is just mental now. Like, there's progress is happening, right? We've been reading about China, the government is locked on, like, we're going to do alternative proteins. It makes sense from a food security perspective. It's more efficient. We don't want to be locked into these highly inefficient animal production systems, which are highly reliant on imported feed and can be disrupted and is a liability when it comes to war times and like increasing grain prices and things like this. Obviously, we want to go in the direction of alternative proteins. The same thing that we've seen from Israel and from Singapore and from the United Arab Emirates. Like, these are countries which understand this is where the future is. We need to move towards alternative proteins rather than staying stuck in some stone age where we have these hugely inefficient animal production systems. And now, what is meant to be one of the most advanced parts of the world has just been lobbied into completely shooting itself in the foot on this issue. and is going to increase its food security risks as a result. Like, we've seen the price of animal products skyrocketing across Europe and the US, and we're fucking around with banning words on plant-based and cultivated meat as well. I mean, that is just so dumb. It's so short-sighted. I can't believe that's affecting cultivated meat as well. Like, what are they doing? Yeah, interesting, no fish words on the banned list. I guess the seafood lobby just wasn't that strong here. So you can still have plant-based salmon, plant-based tuna, call it whatever you want. Literally just like the power of the different lobbies. Well, it's not confusing in the case of fish products. Why is that? Well, their representatives weren't in the right meetings, so... It's so fucking cooked, honestly. This is making me into a Eurosceptic. This is making me into a Brexiteer. True, Tone. I'm confused about not being confused. True. Even the European Court of Justice agrees with this. Last year it ruled that no member state can prohibit companies from using these terms, warning that it could create more confusion for consumers. Oh, well, hell yeah. The European Court of Justice seems to have its head screwed on. We won't look at the original court ruling, but this is what I'm saying about courts versus parliaments. Like, parliaments are political places where groups that are powerful enough can get their will passed. And courts are places that look at the evidence and make a decision based on what the evidence says. That's not the function of a parliament or a council, right? Ostensibly, they're meant to represent their constituents and the people who voted for them. But realistically, the way that politics works, interest groups can get their shit passed. So it's a political process, and that is not a good thing. And in the court, the European Court of Justice realizes that this is going to create more confusion for consumers. They've actually looked at the evidence. They're not politicized in the same way that the parliament is. Supermarkets, food producers and restaurants have resisted the measure too. Last month, a group of 20 food companies, including Beyond Meat, Quorn, the Vegetarian Butcher and Linda McCartney, penned an open letter asking the EU to reject the ban. They argue that changing the labelling rules would force consumers to learn a new artificial lexicon that varies by jurisdiction and cause financial hurt to food businesses, especially small and medium-sized enterprises. A sudden change in permitted terminology would impose disproportionate burdens on these operators, forcing rebranding, redesign, and legal reviews across multiple markets, they explained. Rob DeSchutter, head of communications at WePlanet, summed it up. This ban does not help a single farmer, does not improve a single consumer's life. It exists to protect niche political interests, nothing more. Very true. Very true. Not the outcome that we were hoping for, guys. This is unnecessarily restrictive on plant-based companies and just stupid when it comes to banning these terms for cultivated meat. We're going to have people dying of allergies that could have been easily pointed out. I'm not sure if this is going to stick in the case of cultivated meat. It's just so obviously stupid on the face of it. Well, you're going to have cultivated beef, which is going to trigger alpha-gal syndrome in people who have it. You're going to have people who are specifically trying not to buy beef, and you're now going to have a beef product which is not allowed to be labelled as beef, that people are going to die as a result of having a thing that they're allergic to, which wasn't allowed to carry the label, which is the thing that it clearly is and triggers the allergy. Like, what? How is that going to work? So very dumb from the EU. L's all round. L EU. Look, silver lining that a lot of the most common terms used on plant-based products in practice have not been banned. But overall, like, yeah, this is not good news. So, yeah, sorry for that, because I have I have European Hopium in the stream title, but this is not what that was. So, LEU. We've got a live one for a debate challenge on one of these threads, by the way. This is what we came for. This is what we came for. Look at this. Look at this cowardly meat industry representative slithering away from a debate challenge. Should we laugh at some meatheads? That's going to make us feel better, eh? Let's laugh at some meatheads. We got some Hopium coming up as well. But let's have a little chuckle at some meatheads. So this is the study that I posted about IQ in childhood having a positive correlation with vegetarianism in adulthood. And this fella, Todd Thurman, who is spent 15 years at Cargill and has now been 8 years as an independent swine consultant, aka works on behalf of an industry to put more knives in the throats of animals like this. If you're in the animal industry, what are you doing sharing these images? Like, doesn't this just make you look like an asshole? He's commented, wow, the veggies are really stretching now. There's a weak correlation, and as always, the definition of vegetarian or vegan is loose. As it turns out, vegetarians and vegans consume a surprising amount of meat. As long as we're talking about weak correlations, the vegans had lower IQ, maybe the lack of B12. I replied, yawning emoji. The study explicitly says that strict vegetarians had a higher IQ than meat eaters, and that there were too few vegans to make any conclusions about vegans. Guess how many vegans were in this study where he wants to say the vegans had lower IQ? There were 9. Yeah, single digits vegans in this particular study. So they like to say, oh, this is too weak correlation. Like, the study, in the sentence where it reports the result for vegans, in the same sentence says, this is too small a sample to say to make any conclusions. They shouldn't have really even reported it, to be honest, because it's just going to be misleading for people like Todd Thurman here who don't know how to read the studies. So I said the study explicitly said that strict vegetarians had a higher IQ than meat eaters, and that there were too few vegans to make any conclusion about vegans. If you're interested, this is the 3rd study I've posted about this topic in as many days, and the finding that meat avoiders are smarter is pretty consistent. If you'd like to debate, I'd be down. Now, he posted a bit of a rant in return. We've already got the debate dodge coming in, by the way, so we can look forward to this. I've managed to bait this guy back into saying that he will debate. Like, this is like the emotional intelligence of a toddler that one can expect from a meat industry representative like this. How can we possibly believe anybody is a strict vegetarian or vegan? Study after study have shown that a high percentage of them will admit to eating meat and animal products on a semi-regular basis. No evidence posted to that end, by the way. So that means either they're not smart enough to know what a vegetarian or vegan means, which kind of hurts your premise, or they're liars. Very likely it's a combination of both. It's just really on one here. Some people, like a lot of meatheads, were really triggered by these posts about vegetarians being smarter. It's not at all surprising, if you ask me. Not at all surprising. Like, I hadn't really thought about this explicitly, but I'm so unsurprised by this finding. Like, obviously, right? Obviously, people who have chosen not to eat meat are going to be reflective. They're going to be critical thinkers. They've chosen to depart from the default that's given to them. They've looked at the evidence, possibly, on the environmental impacts or the health impacts or the ethical implications. So yeah, not at all surprising the vegetarians are consistently found to be smarter than meat eaters. The number of vegetarians in the world is small, the number of vegans is tiny, and that's based on how they self-identify. The one thing that both of them have in common is that they almost certainly regularly put on a fake beard, drive through a McDonald's, and eat 2 quarter-pounders with cheese in a dark corner of the Walmart parking lot on a pretty regular basis. Do you think there might be some projection from a man who looks like this? Like, I'm not being rude. Oh, well, you know what? I guess I am being rude. This does not look like a slender man. This looks like a man who regularly gets 2 quarter-pounders with cheese and eats them in a dark corner of a Walmart car park. Interesting to note that 2 of the study's authors are lapsed vegetarians. Debating veggies is a fool's errand. Look how easy this person is to manipulate, by the way. I just said, running scared from debate. Noted. Thumbs up emoji. He says, I'm not scared at all. It's just pointless. Veggies are ideologues. It's like trying to have a scientific debate about religion. It's pointless, and the nature of human nutrition means that there will never be enough evidence to change the mind of someone who has religious level attachment to their ideology. If you want to make... And then, look, if you want to make a narrow scientific claim and stick to it, I'm game. So we've got 2 paragraphs about why he won't debate vegetarians, and then an offer to debate a vegan. Remember, this is him refuting the idea that vegetarians are more intelligent than meat eaters. I feel like all the people in these comment sections are just like flooding in to try and prove the point, honestly. Like, so cooked. Let me see how I change the stream title, by the way, because I've just gone off Restream and I'm back to barebacking it on YouTube directly. But now I've forgotten how to change the thing. You know what, I might just leave it. I'm just going to leave it. So we've got 2 paragraphs about why he won't debate vegetarians and then an offer to debate, so go figure. So here we've got him saying he's game for debating. Okay, I said, excellent, let's set it up. I'll be happy to defend the claim that vegetarians tend to be smarter than meat eaters, or that plant-based diets are healthier than animal-based diets, or that plant-based meat is healthier than meat. I'm sure there are a few others we could think of too. Where are you in the world, and what time of day is usually best for you? So as soon as I get to talking about logistics, like what kind of time of day are we going to debate, now we are back to mocking the idea of having a debate. What are you suggesting? Are we going to meet up somewhere? Should I wear a suit? Like, well, this just got a little bit too real. He's trying to actually put time on it now. I guess I'm going to wimp out now. I said, ever heard of Google Meets? Wear what you want, pal. I added you, accept so that I can slide into your DMs. This phrase would become the latest reason why he's going to try and slither away from debate. Slide into my DMs. I think I'll pass. Running scared from debate after you're saying your game. Noted again. And then no reply for a little while, so I commented again. Just to be clear, you are scared to debate a vegan, question mark. It's so easy to manipulate this bloke, like such a insecure little man. Or insecure big man, I guess. Not at all, but I am fairly creeped out by your desire to slide into my DMs, which I'm assuming you're aware very often has a romantic connotation. I'm not interested in having you slide into my anything. I really thought about how to reply to this, like, does this man think that I might be romantically interested in him? I'd say that's pretty unlikely. So I thought about objecting to that and saying, like, this, you're talking shit here. You've said that you're up for debating, and now you're saying that you're not because I said slide into your DMs. Like, what? So in the end, I just said, everyone can see you're making laughably poor excuses to run away after you've said your game because you're scared to debate a vegan. I'll keep repeating that point because it really seems to get under his skin. And look, here again, he's replied, you never slid into my DMs. Also, why are we going to debate on Google Meet so that you can record video and edit it? Or do you have other motives? He has his LinkedIn settings so that I can't message him until he accepts my connection request, which he still hasn't done, by the way. Shocking, I know. I said, I can't DM you until you accept my connection request. Nope, I never edit debates. My preference would be to do it live so that editing is not possible. Connect and DM and we'll set it up. That's 19 hours ago, still no reply. Let's give him a little reply. Are you going to connect and DM? Or are you going to keep on avoiding because you're scared to debate vegan? Man, so pathetic, these people. This bloke Ian Storer is probably one of the dumbest people who comments on my posts. Much of intelligence is inherited. Many smart kids are easily influenced by the narrative that veg diets are healthier. What? How does that make sense? If you're going to talk about which group of kids is more easily influenced by unfounded narratives, wouldn't you think it would be the dumb kids? But studies show that non-meat eating kids tend to be smaller. I love how you try and prove your beliefs, but imagine they would be even smarter with some sardines and eggs in their diets. Well, they wouldn't be. because the studies consistently show that they're not. But that's all right. Ian imagines that there would be. I said, do you think smart kids are more easily influenced than stupid kids? Also, weird redirect towards height there. You say they're smarter, and yet they're less tall. Curious. Oh, well, some of these people are just insufferably dumb. And then he's commented again, it's probably the result of having wealthy parents. The one excerpt I posted explicitly said that it controls for social class in childhood. Like, this was only... The whole thing is 2 sentences. And the second sentence... Well, 3 sentences if we're being charitable. The third sentence here, then, in that case... IQ remained a statistically significant predictor of being vegetarian as an adult after adjustment for social class, both in childhood and currently. Probably because they had wealthy parents. What? There's the king. There's the king coming in from the top rope. Let's see if we can't get Romeo over here to come on for a debate. The object of my desires, truly. I doubt this guy's wife is romantically interested in him. So there we go. We had some fun. We do have a laugh. We do have a laugh. You can't say we don't have a laugh with these people. Swine consultant, yeah. Literally my job is to put more knives in the throats of pigs. One actual villain. This probably be one of the biggest villains on the channel if we manage to get him on. Like I was saying the other day, Matt Acton, I've no ill will towards the guy. I don't think that he's, I think he's just confused, frankly. But people like this, who have spent literally decades with the goal of putting more knives in throats, like, this is not the face of a good person. Does kind of look like one of the animals he abuses. True, Stephen. Well, there you go. So that's what's going on the LinkedIn at the moment. I really hope we get this guy on. He seems to be easily manipulated and provoked. All we have to do is say, "You're scared of debating vegans, lol." And he'll go, "Oh, no, I'm not. No, I'm not." So that's this guy. We'll see if we can get him on. That'll be a good debate, because he is bought in. He is, he's self-employed in the pig sector, so he cannot. He just cannot. Look, I can message him like this. Let's connect so that we can set up a live debate. Since you're definitely not scared to debate vegans. I've already sent him connection requests, but there you go. And look, if I click message, it comes up with you gotta go premium. You gotta get the sales navigator. So nah, done that. He knows the offer's there. Anyway, should we have some good news? One of our campaigns on the Humane League's Fast Action Network has scored a victory. Ahold Delhaize, cage-free victory. Following 15 months of relentless pressure and your countless digital, in-person and on-the-ground actions, Ahold Delhaize has released its updated cage-free policy and committed to reporting progress annually. The Humane League worked alongside our supporters and a global coalition of animal protection organisations to get here. This is a huge win for hens. and your efforts directly led to this victory. Thank you for your continued work and support for animals. Guys, this is huge. Let's go. It's such a great moment when you see one of the campaigns that you've actually worked on get a victory. And this is not a small victory. I really want to make that clear. This is a huge company. The way that Humane League works is by targeting companies which are going to be large enough to have a huge impact for animals, and able to be influenced, and where they have failed on commitments, right? But they're very strategic about this, right? They're not pissing around in the small leagues. Okay, they're really only engaging with huge companies. So that's why we're going after Unilever and Choice Hotels. We had a victory from Subway last year. Like, these are not companies that are processing an insignificant amount of eggs. So this is a huge, huge victory, and let's read more about it. This is from the National Law Review. The Humane League marks major win as Ahold Delhaize advances cage-free sourcing for hens and pigs. Pigs as well in this. I didn't realise I was included. Commitment from one of the world's largest food retailers sets a new benchmark for accountability in the traditionally slow-to-change grocery sector. Let's go! Also pretty hot off the press, guys. This was only confirmed yesterday. And it's a massive win for animals. We just read a bit of depressing news from the EU vote. This is a chance for us to celebrate and enjoy and reflect on a massive victory that we've scored for animals. The Humane League, a global non-profit working to end the abuse of animals raised for food, today marked a major victory in its corporate accountability campaign as Ahold Delhaize formally agrees to source from suppliers that have phased out cages, alongside a commitment to annual public reporting to maintain transparency and accountability. We recognise that many organisations in the US and globally whose sustained campaign efforts made this agreement possible. This milestone represents a significant breakthrough in the movement to eliminate battery cages, one of the most extreme forms of confinement in animal agriculture, and demonstrates Ahold Delhaize's renewed commitment to align its sourcing practices with widely accepted animal welfare standards. This plan sets a strong example for the retail sector, said Dan Shannon, CEO of the Humane League. Public commitments matter, and it's encouraging to see companies like Ahold Delhaize taking meaningful steps to meet them. Consumers are paying attention, and accountability drives real progress. Ahold Delhaize is one of the largest grocery operators in the United States, with Food Lion representing nearly half of its US store footprint, and banners that include Stop and Shop, Hannaford, Giant Food, and The Giant Company. Don't we recognize all of these from like months of posting on their social media and emailing executives and so on? This calls for a non-alcoholic beer base, Tristan. Like, we recognize all these brands, right? These are the places where we were doing Fast Action Network, Food Lion, Giant Food, Stop and Shop. This is the emails that we've been firing out and the social posts that we've been doing. I thought we were just doing it for points on the Fast Action Network, but no, there's actually going to be millions and millions of animals helped as a result of this. I was just doing it for the points. As part of its renewed commitment, Ahold Delhaize will track progress against semi-annual cage-free benchmarks and publish annual updates. The company is also expanding clear on-shelf signage across all banners to encourage customers to choose cage-free eggs. This commitment will not only benefit the over 5 million hens in Ahold's supply chain, but also set a new standard for transparency. We encourage other major retailers, including Kroger and Target, to follow their lead. Well, looks like maybe we know who's next on the chopping block of the Fast Action Network. Over 5 million hens in the supply chain. This is where it's useful to talk about the scale neglect that I often talk about. Like the birds in oil thing, where it's difficult to scale your emotional reaction to very large numbers appropriately. Like if I had one hen here, and you could see her on stream, and I said, I'm going to keep this one hen in this tiny little cage, where she can't turn around or spread her wings. She's going to be completely enclosed and extremely uncomfortable and unable to express her natural behaviors and endure all sorts of injuries as a result. Or I'm going to let her out and let her be free to roam around and express her natural behaviors. On the scale of one hen, it's much easier to be emotionally connected to that and say, well, that must be a rough time for that one hen. I can relate to her suffering, and I can realize how she doesn't want to be in that cage. I can feel empathy for her, and, you know, I wish it wouldn't be the case. But if I say that about 5 million hens, well, now it's kind of hard to relate to what that even means. Like, what does 5 million hens look like? You know, I'm probably never going to be in a position where I can see 5 million hens in one time. That just become a statistic rather than a sad story of an individual who's suffering. And so it's a little bit more difficult to relate to on that scale. But make no mistake about it, that's a bug, not a feature of human psychology, okay? This really is 5 million times more important than the one hen in the cage. Your emotional reaction here is unlikely to be 5 million times as strong to the news that they're going to be let out of the cage. But this really is 5 million times better news. This is 5 million reasons to be happy. This is really, really good news. And again, like, this is the result of the action that you guys have been taking on the Fast Action Network. So you all made this happen. This is seriously good news, guys. The Humane League will continue to monitor Ahold Delhaize implementation of cage-free transition and publish updates on the company's progress. To learn more, donate, or take action for animals, visit thehumaneleague.org. They're keeping an eye on it. They know if these companies don't follow through, and that is like what a lot of the Fast Action Network is about, is saying, hey, hang on a minute, this company said that they were going to do cage-free, and they haven't. So Humane League's keeping tabs on them, and through the Fast Action Network, and, you know, a bunch of partner organizations who they mention. There's a lot of different animal organizations that can take credit for this. But this is a huge victory for 5 million hens, guys. That's huge. That's like a decently large city. I think there's about 500,000 people where I live in Bristol. It's like 10 Bristols worth of hens. So really, really good news. And take a moment to enjoy it, okay? Because turns out we weren't just doing this for the points. Speaking of which, let's make sure that we get a few. I don't want to lose my streak. Let's do a little bit of Fast Action Network, and then we do have some more good news as well. We do have some good news from Europe, even though we've just had a lot of bad news from Europe. Yeah, Tristan says in chat, how many of us are there that regularly do Fast Action Network? Like, yeah, that's a good point, Poe. How many chickens are saved per person doing this? Like, there aren't that many. There aren't that many people doing this. And you can tell, by the way, because look, this is some of the latest actions. And on this post, there's 19 comments. And a lot of them are like, this isn't Fast Action Network. A lot of these are, to be fair. But even so, like, it's probably two figures, not even three figures people doing this. Like, we're talking dozens, not hundreds of people who do the Fast Action Network. Yeah, how many of those 5 million hens? Let's say that there's 50 people who do it regularly. That's 100,000 hens each. So that's pretty banging news. And yeah, that's a really good way of thinking about the impact here. Like, if there's thousands and thousands of people doing this, then frankly, one additional person is still good, but is not going to be that one extra person makes a difference. There's the king. It's not going to be that one extra person makes a difference, right? Whereas if there's a few dozen people doing this, as there seems to be, if you look at like the number of comments on these posts, there's just had 3 comments on that last post, then really there is a high number of people, a high number of animals helped per person doing it. So here's something where you can make a huge difference. I'm glad I got the chance to plug this in the conversation that we were just having. It's such a easy, low effort way to make such a massive difference for animals. Leave a negative review for Unilever Food Solutions Portugal. Reviews must be unique or they risk being flagged. Okay. Do you recommend Unilever Food Solutions Portugal? No. You guys are not taking seriously your commitment to animal welfare. How do you think it's acceptable to keep hens in cages? We'll do a few more of these and then we'll kick on again. There's the king again. Always on these, mate. You're smashing it. I love this. We need people to be obsessed with doing this. Yeah, look, there's really not many. This is 4 comments. I'm one of 4. Tristan King's one of, like, half the people who have done this are in the stream right now, and this person's just saying thank you. Like, there's only one. There's literally me, Tristan, and one other person who have done the post so far. We're getting like 1 million hens each worth of credit for this. I love that, Tristan. I love that. We need people to be obsessed with doing this. And honestly, like, number of obsessed people is such a sensitive metric where if you just have one of them, it can make a hell of a difference. And if you just have half a dozen of them, like, it's game changing. Getting obsessed with helping animals is so high value. It's so high value. There's the king again. Loves it. Nice. Look, we got a few people on here. I would love the fast action comment sections to be just overwhelmed with people from the stream. That'd be so based. All right, we'll do a couple more and then we'll kick on. This person's pretty good and consistent. Oh, look at that. That's actually... Oh, get more. All right, I guess there are some more. Oh, you know what? There's only 2 more on here, so we'll do the last 2, and then we'll kick on. Unilever Unmasked. Yeah, fuck Unilever right now. Like they're one of the biggest brands in the world. They own fucking everything. If they're failing on animal welfare, it's a real... That's a real problem. There's probably more hens implicated there than there are in Ahold Delhaize. Alright, let me do this on the other tab so that I don't dox myself. I feel like I've done so many of these Hellman's forms. This is in Portuguese, I guess. It's kind of long. Always translate Portuguese, yes please. Let's go. Should have given me the comment in Portuguese, surely. Oh well. No, I don't want to receive news and promotions from Hellman's. Done. Nice. There's the 10-week streak for the lads. Good. I've got a tasty little LinkedIn notification there. Let me see if this is our buddy Todd. Toddles. Nah, just someone else liking my post. Okay. Well, there we go. We're up to the 10-week streak on the Fast Action Network. We're up to 471 points. And yeah, we've scored a big victory against Ahold Delhaize. Man, it feels so good when you actually see the results of the campaigns. I thought we were just doing it for the points. But there we go. Hey, little sunshine, nice to see you. At 331, Tristan, not bad at all. You know, there's a couple of because they tend to be American brands, right? So there's a couple of things on there that I don't do, the phoning ones and the posting physical postcards, I guess. So these are the areas where you can catch me up. We've got a few bits of Hopium around. God knows we need it after that EU news. But check this out. No wonder the meat industry is fucking terrified of the plant-based products. From salsiccia to salami, Italians embrace plant-based food with 11% growth since 2023. Based Italians? Really? In my mind, Italy are normally up there with France in terms of least progressive on plant-based issues. Certainly they, lobby against alternative proteins amongst the hardest. They're one of the countries that have banned cultivated meat before it's even available, which is probably also going to get overturned by the European Court. So in my mind, Italy's like, one of the laggards, really. They have not been on the plant-based train, but apparently they have been. 11% growth since 2023. I don't think that you can say that about the UK market or any of these other more developed plant-based markets like the Netherlands and Germany, for example. I could be wrong, but I don't think that we're seeing this kind of growth. But 11% growth since 2023 for plant-based products in Italy, of all places. Italy's consumer base for plant-based meat, dairy, and other products has expanded by nearly 11% in the last 3 years, with health at the forefront of the shift. Oh my goodness. It's like they haven't worked out, say, ultra-processed foods in Italian. They couldn't propagandize them. Italians love their polpette, salsicce, and salame, and not just the conventional versions their government has weaponized. A new report by the Italian Food Union's plant-based products arm suggests that the number of Italians who eat vegan foods like meat and dairy alternatives has increased by 10.6% since 2023. And the products spearheading this consumption trend are meat-free burgers, meatballs, sausages, and cold cuts, which are consumed by 45% of Italians. They're followed by non-dairy milk, 34%, and yogurts, 32%. Wow, okay, that's interesting. See, in the UK, and I'm sure in the US as well, and like I would have thought most places, honestly, plant-based milk tends to be what is leading the way. Because it's very common now, people have oat lattes and soy milk, and, you know, that's like among the most common things. It's more than 50% of households in the UK buy plant-based milk. But here in Italy, it's actually burgers, meatballs, sausages, and cold cuts, which are more popular than plant-based milk. So that's pretty based. These attitudes are reflected in the market performance of plant-based alternatives in Italy, which saw increased sales in meat analogues 15%, plant-based milk 3%, and dairy-free yogurt 2% between 2023 and 2024. Wow, okay. So this headline's probably underselling it, if anything. 11% growth. This is like this is referring to the number of people who say that they eat it in a survey, I guess. And that's over 3 years as well. But actually, when you look at sales of meat analogues, we're actually seeing 15% growth in 1 year. So this is very, very good news. Health drives Italy's plant-based market. Based Italians. Who would have thought, right? I never thought I'd see the day. The research shows that half of Italians, 46%, now eat plant-based products 2 to 3 times a month. Asked why they consume these foods, 42% said they want to diversify their diet, and 19% cited a wish to increase the intake of plant proteins. According to the Italian Food Union, it's not just vegans and vegetarians who are choosing these foods. It's also people who want to rethink their consumption habits with a focus on adding more plants to their rotation. In fact, vegan food is perceived very positively among Italians, who recognize the value it brings to maintaining a balanced and sustainable diet. Over 73% of respondents found plant-based products healthy, recognizing them as a rich source of fiber, vitamins, minerals, and protein with a low fat and cholesterol content. Based pizza inventors, yeah, true, Tristan. 177 po, not bad, not bad, not bad. That's a good, I appreciate that effort. It's all about the streak, really. This is in line with the dietary recommendations from scientists around the world. For instance, the Lancet Commission recommends eating a predominantly plant-based diet with only small amounts of meat and dairy in its flagship Planetary Health Diet framework. All national and international guidelines for healthy eating recommend increasing the consumption of plants and plant-based proteins in particular, notes Giancarlo Giorgio, president of the Italian Food Union's plant-based group. Notice how I can... I'm doing the thing! Notice how I can flawlessly pronounce the Italian names when they're plant-based people. These guidelines advise people to eat more legumes like beans, peas, and lentils more often. However, only 1 in 4 Italians consumes them more than 4 times a week, and a majority eats below the recommended amount. In this transition, plant-based products can be a key ally in achieving this goal. The plant-based choice is reasoned, guided by practical and nutritional reasons, but also ethical or linked to specific needs such as intolerances, and this is why it's important to continue on the path undertaken in recent years without upheavals. Yeah, about that. This is before the EU vote, I'm guessing. No upheavals. We hate upheavals. Ahead of EU vote, Italians are not misled by plant-based meat labels. Let's go. Oh, man. Aside from nutrition, 2/3 of Italians credited their elevated intake of plant-based foods to culinary creativity, noting that they allow them to experiment with new flavors, textures, and ingredients in the kitchen. For 65%, they're an excellent option when there's little time to cook and enable them to eat vegetables even when they're not fully in season. Sustainability plays a role too. I love all the Italian reasons are like culinary creativity, eating vegetables when they're not in season. Such Italian reasons, really. Sustainability plays a role too. Over 2/3 of respondents said they choose plant-based products because they're made exclusively without animal-derived ingredients, and 63% cited their low environmental impact. You know, this pattern of like more people talking about avoiding the use of animals than environmental impact is one that I see very consistently in a bunch of different data. And it's like kind of the opposite of what people would expect oftentimes. People expect that it's going to be, well, talking about animal suffering is too divisive, and like, hey, sustainability, well, that's a more kind of like milquetoast way of bringing it up. But that's not actually what we see in the evidence and the data. It's very frequently the case that, for example, in the UK, there's higher support for mandatory animal welfare labelling than there is support for mandatory carbon footprint labelling on food. I think what it tends to be is that people right of centre see carbon labelling and sustainability concerns as like a lefty issue, and this is not our tribe. Whereas pretty much across the board, people think that we don't need to make animals needlessly suffer. So yeah, you consistently see higher rates of support and resonance with animal-based messaging and reasons compared to the environment. Sure, Italians are compassionate and health conscious in any other nation, just their government that's behind the times. Yeah, maybe already vegan, maybe. I mean, yes, that's very good faith of you. I appreciate that. Keep me grounded. Don't let me get carried away, guys. They're good. They're doing well. Moreover, the Italian Food Union took the temperature of the country's views on the EU-wide veggie burger ban. This week, the bloc will vote on whether plant-based meat should be banned from using meat-like terms on product labelling. Hundreds of thousands of Europeans have come out in opposition to the proposal. A survey conducted by Astra Ricciere for the trade group finds that 90% of Italians who buy vegan products know what they're putting on the plate. And when subjected to a visual test, they correctly recognise plant-based alternatives. For instance, only 1 in 30 thought vegan meatballs were of animal origin based purely in sight. Yeah. Tell us again how consumers are confused by plant-based products, EU? Tell us about that again. The Italian Food Union itself is against the EU proposal. This measure aims to ban established and easily understood terms which have never caused any misunderstanding or misinterpretation over time and appears to run counter to real consumer awareness, it says. The growing interest in plant-based products is not a passing phenomenon, but rather a symptom of a concrete transformation in Italians' eating habits, argues Giorgio. The shift towards plant-based eating brings economic benefits for the country and its businesses alike. Vegan cheese producer Dream Farm, for instance, saw its sales double in 2025. Fuck me, is that right? Is this like a small company that started with the very low sales figures? After doubling revenue. Me just getting completely distracted by another article because that was such an immense stat. So not even actually, it was not as if they were starting tiny. Doubled in 2025, totaling around 2 million. So they're already a €1 million company in terms of revenue. They doubled in a year. I've never heard of this company. They must have something special. This is their plant-based mozzarella, huh? Or was it mozzarella? I don't know. That's my cheese level knowledge. Well, fair play to them. Wow, that's crazy. They're already €1 million company and they doubled their revenue in a year. That's unheard of. That's wild. Who says that plant-based is dying, eh? Companies out here doubling to €2 million in a year. That'd be nice, eh? The shift towards plant-based eating brings economic benefits for the country and its businesses alike. Vegan cheese producer Dream Farm. Oh yeah, we read this. I'm gonna read it again because it's so good. Vegan cheese producer Dream Farm, for instance, saw its sales double in 2025. And new research reveals that a transition to alternative protein could boost Italy's self-sufficiency by reducing the reliance on imports, adding 10 billion in gross value annually by 2040. End products could represent a domestic market of nearly €6 billion. That's twice the size of Italy's domestic olive oil market. And when considering the full value chain, the total market opportunity could raise to €8 billion. Trade opportunities, meanwhile, could reach €3 billion in 2040, on par with Italy's pasta exports in 2022. Anyone know if Italians like olive oil and pasta? I'm not sure. I have to give that one a Google. I don't know if Italians keen on olive oil and pasta. Plus, the industry could help create 31,000 jobs across the value chain. Well, there you go. Based Italy. I never thought I'd say that phrase. Based Italy. With 11% more consumers choosing plant-based products in the last 3 years. 45% having plant-based meat, and plant-based meat sales showing a 15% year-on-year growth. Based Italy. True, already vegan. That's very true. We're more, in general, I think we're more similar than we are different, and anyone is capable of change and presented with the facts in good faith. True, already vegan. That is, I need more people like you in my chat. I'm getting too mean with some of these meathead challenges. And assuming the worst in Italians. That is that's not kind, is it? Well, well done to these guys. This is the team that doubled the revenue for the plant-based cheese company in Italy. It's €2 million in a year. Woof. And we got yet more good news. I think this is Europe as well, is it? Yeah, it is. We got yet more good news from Europe on vegan cheese again. Those vegan cowboys raised €2.5 million in one day for cow-free cheese via crowdfunding. We were just talking about a company having doubled its revenue to €2 million in a year. These guys raised $2.5 million in a day via crowdfunding. That is wild. We're reading articles about companies who are chuffed that they've closed a funding round with $1 or $2 million investment. That's like from institutional investors, and this is just crowdfunding. Like they've just done a Kickstarter and raised €2.5 million in a day. I don't know if many plant-based brands have really tried this, honestly. Like there could be a hell of a lot of investment just through crowdfunding platforms. One day before the official launch of their crowdfunding campaign, those vegan cowboys, the stainless steel company by the founders of Vegetarian Butcher, have already raised $2.5 million by 600 new shareholders. Wait, what? One day before the official launch? So they haven't even launched it yet. And they've raised €2.5 million by 600 new shareholders. The level of support for this systemic change says it all, said CEO Hilde van Kaar. The company states that it opened the crowdfunding campaign to a select group of pre-registrants 24 hours ahead of the official launch. With contributions from both existing and new investors, the soft launch began with €3 million already committed, followed by an additional €1 million raised within the first hour. What? This is crazy. How are they managed to raise so much money? Over the course of the day, more than 600 new investors joined, contributing to a total of €2.5 million. This means that on the first day, 65% of the shares available for crowdfunding, totaling $4 million, were already claimed. The new shareholders include early fans, entrepreneurs, dairy farmers, and cheesemakers, as well as prominent figures from politics and the cultural sector. Oh, that's interesting. They had some dairy farmers investing. Maybe they could see the writing on the wall, hey? Building a movement around animal-free dairy. CEO Hilde van Kaar commented on the successful start. This demonstrates that we are not only attracting capital, but also building a community of co-owners who feel actively connected to our mission. People who want to help shape the future of dairy. Their shared ownership and trust are at least as important to us as the amount raised itself. Yeah, that's a good attitude. And very true. This is not just money. This is a lot of people being bought into the mission. Those vegan cowboys completed an investment round last year, led by tech entrepreneur Peter Gielen, co-founder of navigating software and device TomTom. This laid the foundation for further scaling of their technology. The crowdfunding is not a necessary capital injection, but it's primarily building a movement around animal-free dairy. So they didn't even need the money, they say. The campaign invites investors to become part of the STAC, Stainless Alliance of Cowkeepers. Nice, the company states. Dairy identical cheese. Since its founding in 2020, the team of over 20 lab cowboys have been developing animal-free casein, the milk protein that gives cheese its taste, melt, and stretch. They achieve this through precision fermentation, a technique in which microorganisms replicate the cheese-making function of a cow, producing an identical result with 5 times lower environmental impact. Currently 10 partners, including major names in the dairy industry such as Westland Cass and Hochland, work on incorporating the casein into products such as cheese and milk chocolate. The additional capital allows the company to develop and test multiple types of cheeses and casein simultaneously, accelerating their path to market and broadening their impact. Okay, that's interesting. Well, they're already... Am I understanding this right? They're already doing it? Or they're working on doing it, it says. Work on incorporating... okay. Not sure if the products are available already. Wow, that looks pretty special. Hey, this is precision fermentation dairy. Animal-free, dairy identical casein made into various cheese products. Building on previous crowdfunding experience, founders Jaap Korteweg and Nico Kaufman have a track record of utilizing crowdfunding beyond capital raising. Their former company, The Vegetarian Butcher, secured €1.5 million in an oversubscribed campaign. In addition to funding, the initiative served to increase brand visibility and market entry. Following this model, the current campaign aims to use broad participation as a means to drive societal change. Investor. Yeah, is this a typo? Okay, I guess it's the name of the platform. €1 million in an hour breaks records. The investment platform Investor describes the launch as remarkable. We have never seen an equity crowdfunding campaign take off this fast at Investor. Raising $2.5 million in one day is unique, and $1 million in an hour is a record, says director Ellen Hensbergen. The crowdfunding campaign officially launches on February 24th, 2026, and will remain open until March 23rd, 2026, unless the maximum amount is reached sooner. Participation is possible via vegancowboys.com. The campaign is supported by the investment platform Investor. Let's have a look. Crowdfunding complete. So they were going to keep it open until March 23rd. Here we are on March 5th, and it's already maxed out. So if you didn't get in the first few days, basically, it was an oversubscribed funding round for those vegan cowboys and their precision fermentation dairy. Fermented cow-free dairy is available in Israel and the US. There's also one cheese company with products on the shelves, but don't remember where. Ah, that's cool, Soy Daddy. Yeah. There's the Brave Robot ice cream, which we know about, which is precision fermentation dairy ice cream. And it's also in Israel, I guess. Nice. Well, that's pretty mental. I mean, the crowdfunding seems like a really good strategy for fundraising for these companies. 1 million euros in the first hour. Yeah, no wonder that's a record for the platform. That is immense. Good for them. And long live cow-free cheese. We're getting there. The bold vegan future is drawing ever closer. You'll love to see it. All the big dairy companies are ploughing money into it. Yeah, hell yeah, that's a win. That's awesome. Really, Bretta, that sucks. There's probably other brands and other forms though, hey. So have a little look at the LinkedIn. Alright, I got a message. I won't open that up on stream. Let me open it over here in case it's... Ah, nice. Alright, well, guys, I'm going to leave it there. It's been realer than real. Thank you for joining me this evening. I really appreciate you all being here. Nice talking to Marquitasaurus earlier for allcreatures.org. We had some bad news out of the EU for the ban on meat-related terms. Some outrageous news as far as it extends to cultivated meat. But we had a bit of hopium as well. We can see growth in the plant-based markets in Italy. We can see record-breaking fundraising from crowdfunding platforms for animal product alternatives. And there's more good stuff to come. True Tone, yeah, I'm going to look at that tomorrow. And I'm going to stream probably on Saturday. I normally do Sundays, but I'm going to do Saturday this week, so... I appreciate you guys joining, and I'll see you all next stream. Take care. Cheers.